Right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the next live stream of Adronis. Everything's working good this time, not like last week. So I apologize for last week for not being able to be on the air. Some technical difficulties on my part. Anyways, we are live this week. We're also going to be back next Sunday as well too for another transmissions from Adronis as well too. So again, if you are watching this now on YouTube, just remember that you won't be able to ask any questions to Adronis if you're on YouTube. You just have to look on the YouTube super chat. You will see a pinned comment and you will see the link there for Zoom. So please make sure you come on Zoom if you want to ask any questions to Adronis. Right? So we're getting a few people filing in right now. I haven't really promoted the event that much this week, so this is why. We only have quite a few people here, just a few people here. So I'm just reminding everybody who does want to join, make sure you're going onto the Zoom link. It's a free Zoom call. So just feel free to click on the link there. You can be added to the queue. And of course, we have our moderator, Killian, who's going to be moderating questions. So Killian, if you want to come on and say hi.
Hello, everyone. Yes. Once again, I am privileged to be the moderator for this Adronis transmission. Just my daily reminder that those who wish to ask questions, make sure you direct those questions to the Q&A section. Otherwise, just go ahead and raise your hand, and then we will get to you in due time. Thank you so much.
Great. Excellent. All right, guys. So I'm just taking a moment here and just making sure everything is in good order before we go ahead and get started. So just for everybody on YouTube, hello, welcome. Again, I'm getting quite a few people on the chat here on YouTube. But again, if you want to talk to Adronis directly, please make sure you're clicking on the Zoom link there. And you can join us on Zoom and you can ask Adronis questions. You cannot ask any questions when you're on the Zoom chat or the YouTube chat. Okay, so if you're on the YouTube chat and you want to ask Adronis questions, please make sure you're joining us on the Zoom link, right? Just very important, because I'm seeing sometimes when I'm checking in back with the recording, I see quite a few of you on the YouTube asking questions to Adronis. I'm like, guys, that's not where you ask questions. You have to come on Zoom to ask questions. So that's just a friendly reminder for that. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and start off firstly with a exercise. And then after the exercise, I will go ahead and bring Adronis in. I'll see if Adronis has any topics that he wants to share today as well too, prior to bringing in the Q&A. So let me just get myself organized here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do what's known as the Xiao gong, the exercise. That again is an ancient Qigong technique. And I'll be showing you that particular exercise today because we're going to do some surrendering work prior to bringing Adronis in. So let me just take a moment here. I'll take these headphones off. Okay, so you guys have tuned in today. Don't remember to speak today. You guys have tuned in previously to New Earth TV Live. You know that I have demonstrated this quite a bit through previous episodes. Okay, so the Xiao Gong technique. Basically, when we look at the word Xiao and we look at the word Gong, we're looking at collecting work. Okay, so it's like if you're having a hard day in the field, right? You've done a lot of your harvest and you're just collecting everything and you're ready to go home. Well, this is basically the term used in the nature of this exercise termed as Xiao Gong. So again, I'm just going to demonstrate it here once for you, and then we're going to do it together. So you're just inhaling, bringing the hands up to just above the crown, and then exhale. And you're just saying to yourself, surrender, 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 just within your mind, just as we get down to the navel, and we're just holding it for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and drop. So what this is doing is this is collecting everything that is skewed. This is collecting everything that is out of balance. This is collecting the debris. This is collecting the chaos. And this is just bringing it and settling it into the lower dantian. Okay? The lower dantian is the vitality center of the body. So when you're actually performing this exercise, you're just collecting everything. You're collecting the debris. You're collecting the chaos. You're collecting everything that's skewed. And we're just settling it in the lower dantian. As it's being settled into the lower dantian, this is the grounding dantian. This is what takes in all of that debris and manages to purge it out through the body, both physically and energetically. Okay, so I'd like you guys to try that with me. So as we're doing the Xiao gong, as we're getting to this particular point, you're just telling yourself, surrender, let go, release, release, release. Okay, so any particular tension that you're discovering within your body right now, just be aware of that, right? We're not putting it into a ball or anything like that. Just to give yourself a quick scan, just bringing any particular attention to the body. If there's any tension, if there's any chaos, if there's any debris, anything that's unsettling physically, mentally, or emotionally, okay? You're going to be able to gather that up through the Xiao Gong and bring that into the Dan Tian. So we're going to do this a total of 3 times together. Start off, okay? So we're going to do it first time here. Breathe in. And slowly exhale, surrender, let go, let go, let go, release, release, release. 1, 2, 3. Okay, second time. And surrender, let go, let go, let go, release, release, release. And last time. Okay, that is the Xiaogang practice. See how simple it is. And it's very effective. This is an ancient Qigong technique that has been used for thousands of years. And this is what we commonly use prior to doing Qigong or after doing Qigong, or again, a combination of both. Sometimes if we're doing Qigong as well too, some of us may sometimes stop and we're just feeling that there's maybe a flutter, there's something that's disturbing, we just stop and we do the Xiaogong again because we're settling something, something may be unsettling to us physically, emotionally, or mentally. So that is the Xiaogong practice, and I've heard from some of you who have already been doing it, and you're already getting extremely positive results from it. So that is wonderful to hear. And like I said, this is not something invented by me. This is something that is thousands of years old, and it can help you tremendously with your own inner work. Right? So please, it's a good idea to keep working with it all together. All right. So again, guys, I'm still seeing some questions here in the YouTube chat. Okay, so if you have questions, please come on to Zoom. I will not take questions on YouTube. So just leaving that a reminder for everybody that's on YouTube right now that's tuning into this. All right, just a simple reminder. Sometimes people forget, I get it, or you're just tuning in. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna go ahead and bring Adronis in. I see we got about 10 attendees right now here on Zoom. So like I said, I'd like to see if we can get some more attendees because the more the merrier. We can get lots of good questions going, all right? So if you're watching this on YouTube right now, please pop on to Zoom, all right? Come ask some questions to Adronis. Don't be shy, he's not gonna bite your head off, okay? All right, so again, Killian is standing by. He will be moderating questions. So if you guys do have questions, he'll be kind of going back and forth between audio Q&A and the text Q&A as well too. So I will go ahead now and bring Adronis in, and we'll get started with our broadcast today. Here we go. Sol, star, Syria, Adronis. We are here at this time. We bid you greetings and thank you very much for the opportunity of this interaction today. I am Adronis of Sirius, sending love, appreciation, and gratitude to all who are tuning in to this particular broadcast being brought forward through your internet collective consciousness. Before we begin, we would like to invite all of you right now to simply allow yourself to relax, get comfortable, and tune in to the vibrations of Sirius so that you may synchronize, harmonize, and align to all of the information that we have to share. Also understand that all of the information that we shall provide today is simply that of our perspective, our point of view. For all knowledge, all information, all creation itself resides within your very hearts, beings, and souls. We will elaborate further pertaining to what you are experiencing now upon the planet Earth, how you are all growing, how you are all expanding, how you are all moving into a whole brand new alignment, how you're moving and graduating yourself into, as you would say, a new world to come. Now, when you look at this current decade, particularly throughout your 2020 to 2023, to say that what you have been going through is intense can be somewhat of an understatement. That you are, again, relying on much pertaining to higher authority to try to make things right. Would that be correct? That you want to have somebody in office, that you want to have an appointed leader that goes into your political system and tries to change everything around so that things feel better. Would that be correct? Because when we ask many of you this, you will say, yes, that's exactly what we want. We want to have a leader that goes into the office and is able to turn everything around for the better. That we're going to have a top-down strategy. And that from that person that comes up, hopefully it will be someone who can be very trustworthy, very loving, very compassionate, very sincere, who will come in and they will change everything around. You're looking at this backwards with that thinking. This is not the idea. It is not the idea of putting a feeling of dedication towards a politician, towards a leader, to feel that that person, that particular person, is going to change all of this around. That they will end everything pertaining to virus outbreaks, agendas, lockdowns, and so forth. Many of you rely upon it. You want to have somebody who you feel you can put your faith into and feel that they can go into the office, feel that they can shift everything around. And that is what's going to make everything better. No. It is the idea that from the bottom up, that's what's going to make the change. You have to appoint yourselves as your leaders. You have to put faith in yourself. You have to put your faith in that to which you know as your soul tribes. It's the people that come together because it's the people themselves that are on equal footing with one another. Many of you are in agreement that this has been a very intense time. Many of you are in agreement that everything relating to the government has truly failed. Many of you are in agreement that you realize that many of your world governments are corrupt. Many of you are in agreement of realizing that everything that they've been doing through you for these many, many years have never served your own interest, has never served the interest of the people. It hasn't. So the strategy here is about you working together with yourselves because you have the capability. The only reason why many of these authorities feel that they have power over you is because you are constantly giving them power. Even when you don't agree with something, you're still giving them power. You're still giving them that permission slip and saying, well, I don't agree with what you're doing, but here you go. Here's my power on a plate for you. And that's what you're doing. When you're looking at this particular decade, you are going to see that the people are therefore creating revolutions. The people are therefore standing up. The people are making their voice heard. And they are not making their voice heard so that they can try and get the government to follow along with them. They are basically demanding a complete and total change of everything. And when you get behind that idea, as we said, the way that you are able to transition past this is when you start seeing different countries, provinces, states, moving much more into an independent infrastructure. That's how you move out of all this. It is not going to come with you trying to salvage a corrupt system that has never been based upon your voice. The systems that you exist in right now have never cared about your voice. All they've really cared about is your own silent obedience. They've required your power on the plate so they can scoop that up. And now they have all of this power of authority to get more of what they want. They are serving much more to the nature of the few. Think about it. Have many of you voted in the idea of the wars that have been going across the planet? Have many of you voted on the idea of the taxation that you are going through on the planet? Have many of you voted on certain forms of conditions and protocols relating to living situations, relating to hospitalization situations, relating to infrastructure situations, relating to the nature of funneling money into Black projects that you know nothing about? Have you given any of your particular leeway to that? No, you haven't. You've never really had a voice through any of these political systems. You have never had a voice through government. You have never had a voice through authority. Yet you still defend it. And we would ask you, why do you do that? This is not the way. The way to truly look at all of this is to move forward organically, is to work together as a people. When you have hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands, millions of people all working together with the united cause, that is what's going to bring about enough of a tremendous shift together to transform the entire landscape based on how you live. This is how it needs to happen. It needs to come from the bottom up, not from the top down. Not with the idea of a well-dressed man or woman standing at a podium trying to fill your heads with empty promises, trying to sweet talk you, trying to gaslight you at the same time. 2020s represents the idea of the bottom moving upwards. You're no longer feeling like you're living off the scraps of life, because that's what many of you have been doing. You've been living off the scraps of life. You think things are still unfair, but you're still accommodating the obedience that follows. You still feel lost, but you still hold on and clutch on to a system that is the very thing that is making you feel lost, that is making you feel discarded. It's like a small child who is holding on to the mother's dress when the mother keeps trying to shoo the child away. That's what's happening here. You are trying to cling on to something simply through the nature of your own survival, rather than listening to the voice within yourself, trying to teach you how to live. And that's what a great deal of humans are having a great deal of problems, particularly those in the West. The West are basically the ones that are clinging to this proverbial skirt the most. Those in the East are actually creating much more revolutions. But the ones in the West need to go a little bit more deeper into the trenches before they finally click in and you all start to work together. You're starting to move that path right now. But very few of you are actually starting to see the importance of how you need to come together and how you need to shift and how you, through togetherness, through unity, are going to bring about profound change. It's already starting to happen. Because again, this is why there's shakeups. This is why there's changes taking place behind the scenes. These changes that are taking place behind the scenes of, shall we say, the old corrupt being removed from their positions of power or authority is all thanks to what you're starting to do as a collective. And this is going to continue onwards for the years to come, because that's what the 2020s represent. It's the time of transition. It's the time of change. It's the time where you are moving out of the old guard, watching their pillars fall so that new pillars can be put in place. And guess who are the ones who are going to put those pillars in place? It's you. You're the ones responsible for this. And you're the ones that are going to implement new systems, integrate new systems, create an entirely new blueprint. It's going to come through the people. And the leaders that you decide to elect will be ones that will be, shall we say, much more organic in nature, because this is representing the nature of independence. You will know that you are going somewhere when the discussion of independence and sovereignty and a republic is coming together. If that is not your discussion, you're still caught up in the trenches. It is not about trying to salvage what does not work. And your governmental empire does not work. How you orient yourselves right now, commonly from country to country, doesn't work. Because that is why the world has been, as it were, behind bars through the mind for a very, very long time. They are attempting to give you the impression that you have no choice. You have to follow through with us or else. No, it's the idea that you're working together here to create a fruitful revolution. And that's coming together, and that's working together. And that is, again, discovering those who feel as you do. It does not matter if it is through your online presence or through your physical presence, but nonetheless, you're coming together. And through that coming together, that is the bottom-up approach. That's what's leading you forward. So throughout 2023, 2024, 2025, there's going to be a greater surge of that time, leading into a greater shift that will span a new particular segment, a sequence of renewal. So as you go through 2023, 2024, 2025, you're pushing further. You're basically taking this gigantic sledgehammer and you're knocking down these brick walls. You're smashing the walls down and you're putting new, powerful bricks in its place. You're creating a new foundation. It's a demolition that's taking place right now. This is a worldwide demolition. It's a worldwide wrecking ball where you're seeing everything that represents the old empire being smashed apart. And again, that's happening. But rather than being able to know that a demolition is happening, you're looking over here. You're trying to see what all of these other politicians are trying to say in any particular way to distract you, to prevent yourself from realizing that a gigantic wrecking ball is knocking their old house down. And so a brand new house is going to take its place. But you need to see the wreckage of what is taking place here, rather than moving your head over towards, shall we say, getting more distracted by irrelevant affairs. Be aware of what's happening upon your planet, rather than you indulging into the distractions that are preventing you from knowing that the old is falling apart because it is decrepit, it is, shall we say, chaotic, it is in that sense in a state of deterioration, and it is rotting away. Therefore, it's quite simple for this gigantic wrecking ball to smash through it. All of it is in a state of decay. It is completely in a state of collapse and implosion. And it's up to all of you to start planting those new seeds. You still think that you need to put your faith in someone else. Someone else can do this. Someone else can take care of this. No, you live on this planet. And so you will share some form of responsibility towards these new changes. Otherwise, you simply plummet with the nature of that which is being demolished because you won't let go of the skirt. You won't release your grip. And we have used this analogy before, the analogy of the sinking Titanic, where the Titanic is completely up in the air and there are rescue ships all around, and you're just basically trying to do your best to reach out your hand and take those and say, come, take my hand, come upon this boat. It's safe here. This ship is going down. Nope, slapping the hand away and saying, no, the people on board this ship will save me. The crew will save me. I will be saved. I'm not taking your hand. And here's the Titanic all the way up in the air, slowly starting to go down. It's no longer at the point where it just hit the iceberg. It's now lifted in the air, and it's very slowly starting to sink. And there are still people holding on, thinking the last moment something is going to happen that will save them while being on board that sinking ship. You need to realize that ship is sinking. It's not going to help you anymore. Let go of the need of your survival towards systems that have done nothing but harm you. You are playing victim consciousness. You are continuing to hurt yourself by latching on to the bow of that ship. No, someone's going to help me. Someone's going to save me. Someone on board this ship is going to take care of me, even when you start to see the ship slowly sink into the freezing cold ocean. But you have all these other ships around you trying to reach out their hand to you. Are you going to take it? Well, that's what you have to answer. But this is what this particular decade represents. It is a cleanup decade. It is a transitional decade. It is a wrecking ball decade. It is tearing everything down that is not naturally built throughout the roots, throughout the fruits, and throughout the heart of this planet. It's all going to come down. It's coming down right now before your eyes. Many of you won't see it because you're afraid. Many of you don't see it because you want to survive. Many of you don't see it because you are addicted to the systems that you have slaved yourself to continue to defend. Please keep that in mind when you are aware of what is taking place right here, right now, throughout your year of 2023. All right? We thank you for allowing us to share this discourse with you. We will now open the floor for a question and answer period. Please feel free to share in your questions as you wish. Killian, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you, Adronis, and thank you for that introduction. We're actually going to begin with those who have their hands raised. So attendees with your hands up, I'm going to allow you to speak. And then if you would just go ahead and unmute yourselves. Actually, I'm sorry, Adronis, you might have to bring Brad in. I think he made me a panelist instead of a co-host.
One moment, please.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, Killian. Let me go ahead and do that for you. Keep forgetting to do that every moment. Okay, there we go. So you're now a co-host, Killian. Let me just go ahead, just bring Adronis in. One moment, please.
Sure.
We are here. Please feel free to continue.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, Eugene, I'm going to allow you to talk. Just remember to unmute yourself and begin talking when you are ready. Thank you.
Hello, Adronis. How are you?
Hello, Eugene. We are wonderful. How are you?
Good. That was some great introduction. It's just what I needed to hear.
Yes.
Now, that introduction brings forth one obvious question. Brad often shared that through tragedy comes unity. And it's unfortunate, but that's how it has to be. But through your perspective, will there ever be a time upon the planet Earth where we will no longer need the tragedy to achieve a greater state of unification like we did here in Canada with Freedom Convoy, for example?
Absolutely, yes. But the whole idea, in order for that to happen, is that the only reason why that has not happened is because of lack of realization. It's because you do not realize what is actually taking place. Many do not realize what's actually happening. Many do not see the wrecking ball that's taking down the old foundations. Because again, they're being distracted by other things. All these things on your television, all these things on your mainstream media about scandals, about secrecies, about politicians, about world leaders, about celebrities, and so on and so forth, is grasping your attention rather than seeing this wrecking ball coming forward and taking down these old foundations that once had the foundations of authority. All of that's being taken down right now. The only thing that's preventing you from realizing that is the distractions. It's, as you would say, ignorance. But yes, the whole idea that humanity is going to continue to evolve from this. But you have to look at it in the idea of your ancient times. That if you looked at yourself as a cave-dwelling ancestor, you lacked the idea of understanding the nature of greater technology that would assist you in your evolution. You lacked the greater understanding of social skills, of social understanding that would assist in the idea of a community. This all took time to therefore propagate so that it could therefore be seen, which means through tragedy came unity. through the idea of deaths, through the idea of wars, through the idea of fighting, through the idea of starvation, through the idea of lack of resources, through the idea in that sense of starved lands, lacking in fertility, that led to the idea of great storms and great changes and great drought and great earth transformations taking place. All of these things took place, and it was through the mind of humanity that learned to discern, that learned to realize, that learned to propagate, that learned to advance, to move them forward into greater understandings, which is where you are right now. So all of these things need to come through your appropriate eras. You will look back at this, because we will say that many of you that are here upon this planet are going to come back again. You're going to come back to Earth at a certain point again. Many of you, not all of you, but many of you will, because you're going to look at this from a new perspective. It's not to say that you can't play along in spirit. It's not to say that you cannot join other communities in spirit when you decide to leave this planet. But nonetheless, many of you are still coming back because you're not letting your own major wounds heal from this planet. And because this is the scene of the crime, you will come back and you will decide to heal these wounds. Many of you will come back. And when you decide to come back, you're going to be part of these particular eras, and you're going to look at this time saying, this was the vital time for humanity. This was the vital time where it was time for them to stand up, where it was time for the people at the bottom to now start moving themselves back up to the top, where they started taking their power back, where they started to say no to injustice, where they started to say no to therefore being bullied, to feel that sense that they are only receiving threats from the very organizations that are telling them they're going to keep them safe. Oh, we'll keep you safe. I'm here and I'm going to be responsible for all these lives, but I'll threaten you if you don't follow me. Do you see the hypocrisy? Do you see the hubris? That's the idea. And that's very much how your politicians act. But it is all again a script. It is all again a story. It is all again a facade. But it's the whole idea of saying, oh, I care about many people's lives. I'm here to take care of all of you. But if you don't follow my rules, then you're going to go ahead and suffer. And you're going to go ahead and pay the consequences. That is not compassionate leadership. That is very commonly what you would term as gaslighting. And that is the idea of the politicians having their own particular agendas. And you all see it. This is not something new. But again, rather than trying to cling on to that, thinking, oh, we'll just have another politician in office, or we'll just have another leader in office. No, you're going backwards. How many times have you made this mistake? Constantly going back, thinking, oh, the next leader, oh, the next leader, the next leader, the next leader. And you're constantly disappointed every single time, going back decades. Oh, well, the next leader. Oh, well, the next leader. If we get this person, if we get this person. What, through a roll of the dice? That is not the answer. You are learning to move past these systems. If they are not organic, if you do not have a say in these systems are all about corruption. They are all about you squandering your power, looking at something that is completely out of touch with you, that you have no say whatsoever. And again, as we stated, this is what's creating that wrecking ball. Because what you truly want is your own freedom, but the problem is that you want it rather than claiming it. There will come a particular time, a particular era, yes, where humanity will not be dealing with any of this at all, but it's crucial right now in regards to what you're doing so that humanity can have such an era ahead. Where you are right now is the vital component. It's absolutely crucial of where you are right now and the decisions that you make. Individually and collectively, it is ideal right now because without your decisions, the nature of the eras ahead are questionable. You need to be here in this moment. You need to be here at this time. You need to make those vital decisions so that you can look at your children, your grandchildren, your grandchildren's children, your grandchildren's grandchildren. You're paving the path for them. And what are you going to tell them? I was too ignorant because I was holding on to political nonsense that got me nowhere. And it did nothing but stagnate me throughout my entire life. And you will leave this body filled with regret. It's about cleaning yourselves up right now. It's about taking action, working upon yourself, and learning how to live rather than learning how to survive. We're not telling you to go to war. We're not telling you to revolt. We're telling you to stand on your own 2 feet and use your power so that you know what is right from what is wrong. So you know what is true from what is false. So you know what is sincere from what is made up. Do you see what we're saying, Eugene?
Yes, I will do. Thank you so much for joining us. And you're saying that that there will be a time, like let's say in the next 50 years.
Yes, but like we said, it's not so important about looking ahead of the future. You need to be here right now. Your vital decisions right now are what's going to shape the time ahead. You see, you have potentialities to change exponentially, but those are just potentialities. They're not actualities. What you decide to implement through decision determines the actuality, which creates the strings, the veins, as it were, for potentialities to continue to thrive. But where you are right now is the key. Do you have a bright future? Yes, you do. But it's all based upon what you're doing right now through your life to determine what that future is. There is no real future. It's all right here. It's all right now. This is where you need to be.
I got you. Well, Adronis, thank you for that. And I have just 2 more quick follow-up questions.
Yes.
Now, the second question is, in the book Conversations with God, there is a passage that says, a person who has of greater wisdom needs very little sleep. Now, what's your perspective on how much a person does really need sleep? And if there is such a thing as, having to very little sleep and be totally feel fine afterwards, what's your perspective?
All right, we were not able to get the last part of the quote. Could you repeat it?
The quote goes, a person who is of greater wisdom needs very little sleep. Now,
yes. So a person who is of very greater wisdom needs very little sleep.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
and you want us to comment on that quote?
Yeah, on the quote, like, is it something that's beneficial for humanity to have very little sleep if there are?
Well, you have to understand that this is a parable and not something literal. What does it mean to be asleep? It basically represents that you are, shall we say, completely steeped in ignorance. Do you not realize that many of you call each other sleepers at times? Doesn't mean you've had a lack of, doesn't mean you have all sleep all the time, that you're sleeping 12 to 15 to 16 hours a day. What this is saying is that you're not being aware. You're not letting your own awareness shine. Someone who has very little sleep is more fully aware. And through that nature of full awareness is the realization of their wisdom. You see? So it's more of a parable than the idea of a literal context.
I gotcha. Thank you for that, Adronis. And
so this is what you would commonly term as the sleepers. Whereas those who are awake are much more conscientious and much more aware of who they are, much more aware of their wit. Therefore comes wisdom through the nature of awareness.
I gotcha. Then my last question is, so I've been having some teeth problems recently as a result of my dentist visit over a month ago. Now, the actions that I've been taking to remedy that is some clove oil, which helps to an extent.
Yes, but you also want to flush out your organs. When your organs are contaminated, that particular form of contamination basically functions to create, shall we say, degradation within the teeth. Your teeth are directly linked to your major organs. When your major organs are in disarray and are toxic, your teeth will suffer the repercussions. Therefore, it's very important to do a detoxification and cleansing of your organs regularly.
And any particular organs that you recommend to dexify?
The lungs for one, the liver for another, the gallbladder for another, the intestines for another.
And I also have been
Also
using
looking
brads.
into appropriate minerals, taking appropriate minerals that you often find in spring water is also appropriate for your body, so that your body in that sense can work together in mineralization of the body to also repair essential areas in the body that require it, such as your major organs.
Okay. Thank you. I will look into that. And I just want to add that I also been using Brad's body deck cards, but
Yes.
that would explain it why I didn't have quite an instant healing effect. I felt something, but that pain sensitivity is still there. It's not going away. So that leaves me wondering if I'm using the cards wrong or.
It's nothing to do with using the cards wrong. It's that you're not appropriating your body to the point where it can heal properly all the way. The cards are helping you to do is they're helping to keep certain things at bay for you, but they're not here to resolve the problems because they're not going to produce minerals for you. You need to mineralize your body. You need to give your body the appropriate resources it requires so it can heal everything. And rather than trying to feed more fuel onto the fire, you need to be conscientious about what you're eating. You need to be conscientious of what you're ingesting. You need to be conscientious about how much you're eating per day. And when you're eating per day, you need to be conscientious of your environment and making sure that your environment is complementary to your health and well-being being replenished. There are many forms of variables that need to come to play here, where you just think, oh, I got the cards in my hands. Brad has already told you that the cards are an addition to your healing. They're not the only answer. You still have to have a good diet. You still have to take care of yourself. You still want to make your environment complementary to your health and to your well-being. Those are things that you still have to do, addition to your healing, not the only answer, you see?
Yes, thank you, Adronis. I will look into the advice that you recommended me to basically get my teeth into good shape. So that would be great. Thank you so much.
We thank you for your questions. We will now move on. Questions, please.
Thank you, Eugene. We now move along to Val. Val, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. Just remember to unmute your microphone before you begin speaking. Thank you.
Hi.
Hello, Val.
Hello, Adronis. I know you're wonderful. Well, my first question is, what is your view about the system of planetary hours? For example, are the hours of Venus really influenced by Venus?
Yes.
So
What about Venus?
It's about the system of planetary hours.
Well, they do not really function on an hourly state as you would. You see, again, this is much more of a linear term. When you're looking at the beings from Venus themselves, they operate on a much more different conjunction. Their conjunction in regards to the mathematics of what they coordinate pertaining to the nature of time is much more on a higher level. It is on much more of a cosmic level. It is on a different form of clock, as we would say. It's not so much planetary because they are able to move into, shall we say, extraplanetary states. They are much more galactic in that nature. Therefore, they do not operate together with a system that you would, and you still are, because you're still operating as a linear planetary system.
But I'm talking about the planetary, the system of planetary hours here on Earth.
What about them?
You got the hour of Jupiter, the hour of Venus. Is that real?
We're not talking about that, though. This is what we're saying, is that looking into the civilizations themselves, they operate on a different standard.
Fine. Okay. But we are not influenced by Venus in the hours of Venus.
You're influenced by everything that surrounds you.
Okay, fine.
That's exactly why when you look into your astrology is letting you know about the orbits and the alignments of the planet that therefore affect moods, that therefore affect changes taking place upon your planet. It is again representing an external system of measurement, an external system of energetics and magnetism. That's what your entire astrology represents. Everything that surrounds you is affecting you, always will.
I was talking about that because in ceremonial magic, they do rituals in the hours of Jupiter to invoke the energies of Jupiter.
Well, these hours may represent the nature of coordinates rather than the idea of time.
But we receive the influence of those planets in those hours.
Yes, but not the idea of hours pertaining to time, as it would represent more so the nature of aspects and coordination. It's not
Okay.
referring to them as a certain type of hour clock. It's more so referring to the idea of their degrees, of their coordinates. That's how your astrological system is built. It's not based on saying, okay, it's 3 o'clock on Jupiter. It's not what we're talking about. We're talking more so on the idea of the aspects, of the coordinates, of the alignments, of the trajectories of the planets. That's what affects you, not the nature of an hourly clock.
All right. Can you talk about the nature of the color silver and the color gold and how they affect us when we meditate on them?
Well, silver in that sense represents a certain radiance pertaining to your degrees, and is much more in a coordination together with the nervous system, whereas the nature of gold basically represents the purity of every organ. When you move yourself into the nature of meditation, for example, and you move yourself much more into the stature of humility and peace, you're actually enabling the gold energy to basically sprout a seed. It is the sprouting, it is the genesis of a greater transformation. It is the color vibration of transformation and transmutation. That's the nature of gold. Where silver in that sense aligns much more into the increase and improvement of the nervous system, or shall we say the vessels to where the energy itself travels. It makes everything much more smoother. It makes everything much more pure and pristine. There's a crystallization quality to silver.
Great answer. Great answer. And the last question, what can you tell us about the sacred name Yod He Vav He, and what are the benefits?
This is one of the
chanting that
names of
name?
gods. This is one of the names of God. Yod He Vav He, such as Yahweh, such as Adonai, etc. They all represent certain vibrational qualities that move you into different instances pertaining to, shall we say, greater celestial realms to help understand the nature of your personality to godhood. They are all the many faces of the godhood that represents vibrational instances that will assist you in alignment to that personality archive in that way that represents the nature of that particular degree of godhead. So looking at the many faces of God in that sense would be an analogy representing that name. You're aligning to one of the faces of God at the Godhead, therefore representing Yod He Vav He, Yahweh, Adonai, etc.
So it could be very beneficial for us if we chant those names on a daily basis.
If you're feeling that connection to do so, yes.
All right. Well, that was it.
All right. We thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
Questions, please.
Thank you, Val. We now move on to Boris. Boris, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. Just remember to unmute your microphone and then begin speaking when you are ready. Thank you.
Hello, Adronis.
Hello, Boris.
I was really wondering if I'm thinking that I am awake, but I don't know if I am one of those people who came here who are old souls, or whether
But
I'm
then
just
you know
a
that you're
soul.
not fully, you know that you're not fully awake. You see, when you know that you're fully awake, you are aware of these instances. You are aware of these premonitions. You are aware of these ideas. So when you feel, oh, I feel I'm awake, okay, well, you're awake to some particular degree, which just means you're aware of certain things. But what we're telling you is that when you move much more into the nature of your own being, nothing becomes a mystery anymore, which means the answers come to you prolifically. And how have we shared this to happen? Is that when you're getting still, when you're getting silent, and you go into surrender, and you stay there. You simply reverberate that vibration of the I am, and you remain there, and you continue to remain there. And throughout that remaining, all of these particular forms of inner pathways within yourself start to fire up. They start to come online. Now you're just amazed at what you are able to receive because of that realization staying within the silence and the sweetness of that beautiful stillness and surrender. That's what opens you up to all these things. You see, when you're not sure of something, it's because something within yourself hasn't activated yet. Something still remains dormant, and that's okay. But therefore, we are giving you the solution to how this can open up. Some of you may decide to meditate upon that question, and therefore the realization comes to you, and you can do that. But we are also suggesting that when you go into the three S's, the stillness, the silence, and the surrender, remember, as it says in the Bible, be still and know that I am God. It's very important to remember that. Then that is what's going to help you over time, that when you come back to the question again, the answer instantly comes. So again, you have to let yourself stretch yourself out. You let yourself expand. You let the bliss embody you. And that bliss is everything that represents peace. It is everything that represents happiness and joy and love. And that's what you're expanding. That's what brings about this great knowledge. It's not the idea that curiosity is going to answer curiosity. Curiosity always comes with a question mark. You are never going to answer a question when all you have is questions. When you're letting yourself be the answer, that needs to come through the pause. That needs to come through the silence, because the silence is not empty. The silence is actually full. This is why you are able to create a house to where the emptiness inside is what's livable. This is why you create a vase to that everything that is empty inside can be placed inside of it. It is the emptiness that is the true fullness. So therefore, when you are looking to ponder such things, go into the silence and let spirit reveal it to you without you as the physical action doing anything. It simply comes. You wake up one morning, all of a sudden you know the answer to your question. You don't know how because logic can't trace it. But because you are still, because you are silent, because you are in surrender, that emptiness that came to you was actually full of the life that brought you the clarity that came because the right question was asked at the right time. You see? The emptiness is the fullness. The silence provides all the answers.
Adronis, I was just going to say, I am recovering from a shoulder reconstruction. I can't go to work because my work is very physical, so I've got quite a bit of time on my hands.
Yes.
I do go to nature. I look at the sky and I try to communicate with whoever's out there, but it feels like I'm not receiving the answers.
Because you're not willing to. You're not willing to receive them. That's why. Your mind is too busy pondering on other things that feel it needs to ponder on. You're too busy pondering and you're not letting yourself go into the silence. That's why you cannot receive it. Whatever you're not receiving is because you're holding on to something. You're holding on to the tether and you're not letting the tether go. When the tether goes, you will feel the clarity come through. It will be very clear to you. It'll be an epiphany. It'll be an aha moment. Now, going back to your shoulder construction, have you considered re-sewing the injury?
What do you mean re-sewing?
Watch our hand. What are we doing?
The infinity sign.
Yes. Do you know what that does? That cross connects everything together, physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically. Which means that when you look at your shoulder, you're just doing this. As often as you can, you will notice that your healing time from the shoulder will therefore be cut in half, at least, by doing this daily.
Wow.
You are re-sewing the cross connections pertaining to prana, pertaining to the vessels that therefore come together. You are re-sewing the appropriate blood supply that comes into the shoulder just by working together with the figure 8 or infinity sign configuration, because that is a natural geometry that ties everything back together. It sews injury back into harmony.
Wow, I've never, ever heard of anything like that.
Well, this is actually something that's been taught throughout your ancient teachers. It's just been forgotten.
Because my injuries from my lifetime, they're numerous, all the joints.
Yes, but because in that sense that you're not being aware of how to repair them, this is why they remain, which means the negligence, not knowing how to repair them, is what causes them to remain. Now that you are being aware about how to repair them simply by working with the figure 8s, you're able to heal them in no time.
Wow. Thank you, Adronis. This has been You have no idea. You've got an idea. Wow, thank you. Thank you.
So we would suggest continuing to do that. Cut your healing time in half.
Awesome. And
Right.
what about, like, there's all this talk about fifth dimension, fourth dimension, you know, different densities.
Well, fourth dimension relates to the nature of time. It's not something you can occupy physically. That's a time dimension. Now, basically, this is why many New Agers, in that sense, will often say that you're going from 3D to 5D. Do you know why they discount the 4D? Because 4D is a time dimension. You cannot occupy it physically. It is an immaterial dimension. So this is why they say they skip it from 3D to 5D, which basically what they're saying is that there's just an extra dimension pertaining to vibration that is enabling a lightness that's coming together. Whenever any of you notice that someone says, oh, we're going from 3D to 5D, it's not to say that they're wrong. It's not that they've forgotten a number, but the number 4 relates to time. The number 4 relates to an immaterial dimension that you cannot physically occupy because it relates to time. You cannot occupy that dimension physically. You would be dissolved. Therefore, looking into the idea that the 5th dimension would represent an extension. When you're looking at the 4th dimension, you're basically looking at a flip, and you cannot occupy that flip. It operates through the idea of the congruency of appropriate dimensions, but though that particular dimension cannot be occupied by your physical self because it works together through an immaterial domain. So when you look at 3D to 5D, yes, it's correct in a way, but it's representing an extension to where you are moving much more into light rather than the nature of solidity, or shall we say, solid vibration, to what you're experiencing here, to what you term as the 3rd, you see?
So would you get there by being more loving?
Yes,
And
very much like what we have shared over the
over
years. Loving, compassionate, joyful, you're taking responsibility for your own life. You're healing your wounds, just as we've taught you with this new premise about the figure 8s.
So
you're
in other
taking
words,
care of yourself so that all that remains within your heart is peace, because that's the next level up. You're moving from the navel and you're coming up into the heart. That particular dimension that you describe is a heart-centered dimension. You're not heart-centered, you won't go there. You need to start living through the heart. And part of living through the heart is responsibility, is empathy, is compassion, is the idea to be of service without the idea of feeling that you're getting something in return. You're simply assisting yourself through all the facets that you know yourself to be, therefore representing life.
thank you, Adronis.
All right. We thank you for your questions. Next question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Boris. We appreciate your questions. We're now going to move along to those who have written their questions in the Q&A section. We will start now with, I apologize, give me one moment. We will start now with Caroline Smith, who asks, hi, I was wondering if we have more than one soulmate or twin flame. Thank you.
All right. We thank you very much for your question. The whole idea is that you have a soulmate, or as you would say, a twin flame, appointed to you based upon the appropriation of the lesson that you need to learn, that represents them as being the gravitational force, representing such an element to your life. Now, to simplify that, which means your soulmate comes together appropriately based upon what you're here to learn throughout that particular octave of your life. So when you move into relationship, that's an octave, that's a segment that you're experiencing. And you feel that connection to a particular soulmate, because that again is the gravitation of what you're here to learn, to understand, to interact with, to work together with, to see how it works and flows together with you. When there is an indication that perhaps that relationship now dissolves, and that again you felt, oh, maybe this wasn't a soulmate, maybe this wasn't a twin flame, maybe this was just somebody who was coming together karmically to teach me a lesson. The very nature that you have a soulmate is indicating that there's karma in the first place. What that means is letting you know that there is still something to learn with each other. It may be a very loving life, maybe loving understanding, but even when you're here to help each other, that is still a bond. That is still a connection. Now, that particular connection could last the rest of your life. It could even go on for lifetimes if you wish. But nonetheless, at some particular point, it will change because everything is changeable through the mind. When that particular instance is therefore dissolved and everything that needed to be learned from that experience happens, there is always the opportunity for another to come in. Or there could also be the opportunity where you are simply enjoying the nature of your own presence. So, are there other soulmates? The answer would be both yes and no. The nature in that sense pertaining to the soulmate itself would represent the idea that it's someone who's coming along at the appropriate time for you to learn about yourself through them. And that again, whether it is for 1 month, whether it is for 1 year, whether it is for 20 years, whether it is for multitudes of lifetimes, at some particular point, it will resolve itself. And therefore, once that has been dissolved, once that has been nullified, because everything that is representing the nature of learning has come together, there can always be another. Or it may be that, again, you're just simply happy within your own presence. Nonetheless, what has been served is served. So that's why we say, in a nutshell, the answer is both yes and no. All right? We thank you for your question.
Thank you, Caroline. We appreciate that question. We now move on to Gail, who asks, are the histories that you have given us, like on ancient races, the Venusians, the giants of Meldak, the fall of Atlantis, are these stories that play out as we enter to have a physical experience that now appear as a history that has occurred?
We would say that they are aspects of histories, not the history itself, but aspects of it, yes.
Sure. Have these been, or are they agendas that we play out? How are they real to where Brad can go to Africa and find evidence of these giants? Thank you.
Well, he already has. He already has gone to Africa. He has already gone to South Africa. He has already seen these fossilizations of giants in that way. But whether he sees them or not, if you have not experienced it, it will always be a questionability. It'll always be something with a question mark. Have you gone to South Africa to see the presence of fossilized giants? The answer is no. Then it does not matter what another sees. Does not matter what another says. Does not matter what another hears and tries to convey to you. If you have not had that experience, it will simply exist as a philosophy. So this is what we do. We will often share a great deal of these topics that may go back into what you term as time, going back into many thousands of years, to giving you a philosophy. And if you are looking at that philosophy, because all really a philosophy is a story that has not been met by your actions. We will say that again. A philosophy is a story that has not yet been met by your actions, which means you have not experienced it. When you are experiencing some aspect, because that story of philosophy has given you inspiration, and you have now experienced it firsthand, you now become an authority from turning that philosophy into an actuality. You have become a teacher of that true experience. So it's about turning philosophies into experiences, rather than just relying through the nature of, as you would often say, blind faith and saying that, oh, well, this person had a philosophy, I've never experienced it, but boy, I believe them. All right, it's not to say you can't believe them. You certainly can. But the whole idea is that if you do not allow yourself to have some type of morsel or some type of version similar to that idea that you know excites you, then you will never be an authority to that philosophy. You will never claim it to know its truths. And that's what we suggest to all of you. We can share a great deal of philosophical stories for you. There's no end to it. But again, if that's not something that you are deciding to pursue, you will never know its true grandeur, because you're not allowing yourself to move and venture towards the actions that are necessary to making that philosophy into your truth. You are not making it into an authority through your experience. So when we've talked about the giants of Meldak, when we've talked about Atlantis, when we've talked about Mu, when we've talked about Lemuria, when we've talked about the Pleiades, when we've talked about Sirius, when we've talked about Arcturus, when we've talked about your ancient Earth history, All philosophy, all of it. Because many of you have not had those forms of experiences yourselves. Adronis have you. Yes, that's why we're telling you about it. We therefore claim the authority of it because our actions have moved forward into the actuality of understanding that experience, because experience gives you the knowledge. But all we can do is just pass it on to you as a philosophy, as a means to inspire you, because you may discover certain qualities within yourself that you did not know exist, that when we therefore bring about this insight, it will inspire you, it will light something inside you, and you will want to explore it, and therefore you become an experiencer of something that was once a philosophy that is now becoming an actuality. The experience itself is now the gold nugget. And now your experience enables you to be a teacher, a sharer of the story of something that is experienced to you, but philosophy to everyone else. Therefore, you can refer to us as cosmic philosophers, because to us, we have the experience of these things. To you, you're simply hearing it as philosophy until you decide to get up from your chairs, take action from the story, and make it the gold nugget of experience. So now it is something that you claim, and it enriches yourself. That's the idea. All right. Thank you for your question.
Thank you for that question, Gail. We appreciate it. We now move on to Lil Possibility. The wording here is a bit convoluted, but I'm going to do my best. So what about manifesting in the emptiness? Can you give more info on it that would really help?
But this is what we said, is that there is no emptiness. What you believe is empty is actually filled with life, as we stated. The emptiness that takes place inside your house is what makes it livable. The emptiness that exists within a vase is what enables everything to be put inside the vase. What you consider to be empty is never devoid. It is never just, as you would say, complete and total absence of absolutely nothing. There is absence there, but that's only a perspective. Everything that exists within the space is what you would commonly term as the ether. Now, the ether is responsible for everything that makes up life as you know it. Everything that's here is because of one thing. Do you know what that is? We just said it. It's the ether. When you're looking at the nature of what you believe to be empty, it's not. It's just the idea that the ether is completely intact within that space. When the ether itself becomes disturbed, you have two qualities that come together. You have space being ruptured. And this can commonly be referred to by some on your planet as space and counter space, where the nature in that sense of the ether itself has been ruptured, it has been perturbated, and that there is in that sense electrical and magnetic qualities that are coming together as attributes pertaining to that inversion of ether. And through that inversion, what is it that caused it? Thought. Thought is actually what contorts the ether, bringing about the appropriate electrical magnetic components appropriate to therefore form the nature of matter based upon the condensation of the thought appropriate that is enabling a certain level of experience of an object that is therefore appropriate together for your reality, for you to interact, associate, and experience. Now, this all happens at once. The ether is not confined to time. Time works for the ether in an analogy of speaking. What you term as space and time are just variables. You really still just see them as objects because you look at space as a property and you look at time as a property, when in actuality, neither of them are. But you utilize that in a certain context, that exists within the ether, not beyond it. The ether is timeless, it is formless, it is objectless, it is colorless. It has absolutely no form that you could comprehend. It has no objectivity because it is beyond the mind. So therefore, when you are manifesting, when you feel that you are able to manifest a loaf of bread right in your hand, just by thinking it, well, then you've activated a great deal of yourself for that to happen. And that through the simple thought of holding a loaf of bread in your hand, it is done. And that's the nature of thought. Whereas everything is instantaneously happening because that nature of the loaf of bread that you are intending to manifest in your hand already exists. You're taking what already exists and you're putting it in your hand. If I was to tell you, go ahead and put something in your hand that you know nothing about because there's no rapport, there's no relationship to it, you wouldn't be able to create anything. Because there's no relationship, there's no rapport, there's no familiarity. When you put a loaf of bread in your hand and you materialize it from the ether, it's already existing, it's already here. You've just brought it into being through yourself. It is already existing through all the perturbations of the ether that enable that particular object through familiarity, rapport, to therefore come into your hand and appear. You can only bring forward what you know. You can never bring forward what you do not know. Because the true you only understands what you know. It goes back to a saying that God only knows what you know. Because God is the nature of rapport. That is the attribute of God. The attribute of God is a knowingness. How can you know what you do not know? You can't. Everything that you know represents the attribute of God. Therefore, what you know by manifesting a loaf of bread in your hand, there's familiarity, there's rapport, there's relationship there. Therefore, that is how it is coming together. Now, if we were to ask many of you right now, go ahead and manifest a loaf of bread just like that in your hands, we would say that pretty much all of you couldn't do it. Is it possible that that can be done? Yes. But it's the idea in that sense that your mind needs to be at a certain level for that. Your mind has to understand the nature of the ether. Your mind has to understand the nature of substance. Your mind has to truly understand everything that represents the rapport of reality so that things like that can come to you in an instant. Many of you don't know this, which means you need to get acquainted with how reality works. You need to get acquainted with every single atom and knowing that every atom that exists is you. If you do not have that knowledge, you will never be able to do that. That's what it takes. It's for you to be familiar with how reality itself operates, with how life itself operates. In fact, many species are able to do exactly what we've just shared. They can manifest an object right in their hand that they know. They can do that because they understand the inner workings. And hardly any of you understand the inner workings of life. At some particular point, you will understand it greater, but you need a teacher to it. And it's not just the idea of going into a classroom. It is a teacher that is helping you to understand that the first thing that you need to do is let go of everything that you consider within yourself to be feeble. Everything within yourself to be mortal. Everything within yourself to be limited. That's what's got to go. You have to come into the prime nature of your manifestation. We're not saying that you have to know that you're God, but you're understanding that you know how reality works. In fact, many of the beings are still looking for the nature of understanding God, but they can still do these things because they understand the inner workings, the principles relating to the ether. That's the idea. All right. Thank you for your question.
Thank you for that question, and thank you, Jonas, for that response. We now move on to Anna, who asks,
all right, we will take two more questions before we conclude.
Perfect. Dear Adronis and Brad, what will the new societies look like? Will we, in a way, recreate a type of Atlantean or Lemurian society? Are there groups on Earth currently living in that new system? Thank you.
All right. This goes back to what we were saying earlier. Where you are right now is the vital point. Everything that you can imagine, everything that you feel you can think of is here. But they simply exist as potentialities. And you know what else they exist as? They exist as hope. Because many of you hope yourselves to death. And you think, I hope this happens, I hope that happens. What are you doing right now that would enable that to happen? Really nothing, because you suffer, because you survive, because you're looking for hope down the road and you're not here. Just as we've described, in you understanding the ether, that is exactly what your teacher would tell you. Get out of the future, get out of the past, and be here. And if you do not know how to be here, the ability for you to command life will never happen, ever. If you are completely transfixed on your memories and you are completely transfixed on your imagination to think, oh, well, these are possibilities, these are potentialities. Yes, they are. But you're doing absolutely nothing right here and right now to make that happen. And this is why we say right now, it is the vital time. It is a vital time for you to be here right now, because as we stated, you're helping to pave the road. You still don't understand the importance of being here right now. And the decisions that you make right now is what carves out the potentialities that come closer to actuality. But you again indulge yourself and you try to run and you try to escape and you try to leave this life that you have agreed to participate with. And you stretch yourself out like a slinky. Oh, what about over here? What about the distant future where we'll have flying cars? We'll have anti-gravitational technology. We'll have utopian civilizations. How do you think you're going to get to that? Is us bringing you back down into your body, asking that question. How do you think you're going to get to that? Together. The bottom up, not the top down. The top down in this particular way represents that pyramid in that sense that is illusionary. You see it on your $1 bills. That's them indicating that they're the top of the mountain, that they're the top of the pyramid. That's them saying we control everything and you're here in the trenches. That's what that dollar bill meaning is trying to tell you. That dollar representing the value that they feel they have created and saying, we're at the top of the pyramid and you're all at the morsels. You're all deep down here and you're feeding off the scraps of life. And you're trying to rely on that top to try and preserve the bottom. Why do you think the capstone is separated from the pyramid? It doesn't care about the bottom. It is separated from the pyramid, because they only see themselves as the capstone. That's why it's separated from the pyramid. Look at your American $1 bill. See how it's disjointed. See how it's separated from the pyramid to where what remains is the six-sided object. We're at the top of the capstone and we're going to leave that prism alone because we don't care about it. There are slaves. That's what you're putting your energy towards, everyone. You're putting your energy towards the capstone, even though it's not connected to the pyramid. And that's why that entire structure has got to be bulldozed down. It has got to have the wrecking ball, and it is knocking down that old pyramid so a brand new one can be created with the capstone attached to the entire foundation. It's not detached. Where that six-sided representation of that prism pertains to duality. But when you bring the capstone back together, it is the five. It is representing new adaptability, new change, new horizons, completion, moving into the world of balance. Do you see the symbolism that they throw right in your face? And they know that you don't understand so that they can laugh at all of you. Because you don't take the time to realize these symbolisms. You're too busy trailing off into the future, thinking, oh my goodness, here's a utopia. Oh my goodness, here's everybody in people-powered communities. Oh my goodness, here's us free of money. Here's us traveling the stars. Yes, Those are all great potentialities, but you need to be here. You need to be present. And you need to weigh your decisions wisely. Not just, again, flying by the seat of your pants. Not making decisions based upon your emotions, where you are out of alignment with everything, so that you're only giving yourself greater travesty. The important thing now is to be here, is to work with yourself, is to introspect yourself, to introspect your space. Am I at peace with everything that is happening in my life? No. Then that's what I need to work on. That's what I need to sew back together. I want to make myself whole. I cannot make myself whole if I am worrying about everything that's happening on the planet. I cannot make myself whole if I feel like I can absolutely trust nobody. I cannot make myself whole if I do not take responsibility and I do not empower myself and I do not trust myself. I'm fragmented. I'm like a vase made of glass that has now hit the floor and shattered everywhere. But I can stop time and I can reverse everything and I can bring myself back together as a whole glass vase again. But the whole idea is that you're too busy examining all the pieces and saying, nope, this is wrecked. Nope, this is done. Nope, just discard of myself. I'll get it next time. This is why many of you come back. You miss the opportunities that are here right now. You have forgotten who you are. Completely forgotten. And in order for you to come back, there has to be that spark. There has to be that spark that is going to reverse everything and that vase becomes whole again. You have to want to make yourselves whole. But you see, many of you are programmed. You are conditioned thinking that you're broken and that nothing can fix you. When we are telling you everything that you think is broken really isn't broken. It is you hypnotized. It is you entranced. It is you in an altered state, thinking that you are a feeble, limited, conditioned being. Because it's a trance you're in. You're getting high off these waves that are manipulating your own brain waves, that are telling you you're feeble, you're limited, you're conditioned, you only live a certain amount of time, you're going to die young, etc. You're going to eat all this bad stuff and it's going to make you sick, and you keep buying into the rubbish. And you hypnotize yourselves. And when you finally get out of the trance-inducing programs of the slave system that we've talked about for years, you're now able to reverse everything, and that vase made of glass becomes whole again. And this is what we mean. You have to have that spark that is saying, I'm going to make myself whole again. No ifs, ands, or buts. But if you continue to trail off and thinking, Adronis, what does the future hold? Brad, what does the future hold, etc. You're not living here. You're not being present. We've already told you what the possibilities are. We've told you a great deal about that. We've told you about the nature of how humanity itself can advance itself into becoming an intergalactic civilization. We've told you about the idea of moving from the bottom up. And through that, there will be independency throughout your entire planet. Do we feel that you can do it? If we didn't, we wouldn't be talking to you at all. We know that you can do this, but this is your planet. These are your situations. These are your things to resolve. We cannot interfere. We can't just go into your mind and start living your life. Why would we do that? It would never, ever be a comfortable experience to have somebody else in your head and try to live a life that you're not in alignment with. Don't you think? Nobody is coming to save you. And you need to realize that. Because you don't need anybody to save you. You only need that spark. And when that spark is there, for you to get to know yourself, you see yourself as God once again. You've always been God. You've always been one of the many faces of God. In fact, all the faces. But you don't know it because you have hypnotized yourselves to forget. And in time, for many of you, that hypnosis is going to wear off and the spark is going to be there. And before you know it, that glass vase that hit the floor will now reverse itself again and it will become whole. All of you have the capability to do this, but it's the matter of the spark that you have that is telling you to do this. And when you have that spark, that's when the wholeness will come, right? We will now take one last question before we conclude.
Thank you, Adronis. Our final question will be directed from Silver Surfer, who asks, Adronis, I've discovered that good posture and a supportive bed and good sleeping positions are all that we need to support the natural energy flow, allowing us to wake up super refreshed. This renders meditation and Qigong useless as they provide temporary relief until people sleep again in their negative beds and postures. Why is this not talked about more? Is it possible I am one of the few who really get it that energy is always flowing unless we block it physically? Thank you.
You have a particular point in regards to what you're saying, but the whole idea is that it is very much like the inner practices that you're referring to, for one to realize that those things are particularly possible for you to elevate yourself to that level of health and well-being. How did you come to know those particular things? It came through introspection. That's what meditation is. Came through the idea of inner practicing, of inner working with yourself to realize those things. So you are trying to discount something else that's important and feeling that this is the answer because you've just discovered it. But there is a particular point where you were ignorant to those ideas. And that clarification, introspection of realizing these things that brought you that information is helping you to realize that. What you're doing is you're basically crossing across one bridge and you're burning another one down. And that is not a wholeness. That is a polarity. It is not to shut down other ideals that represent the nature of practice, that represents something that can function as a tool. You are blaming the tool rather than looking into the nature of the naivety of the one that is erroneously using it. You see, that's where you're off. And the whole idea here is that it's like a person who has a knife. Does the knife itself kill? No. The person who yields it can kill with that knife. You see, again, it's not about the tool. It's not saying that Qigong is useless. That would be an erroneous understanding. It is not about meditation being useless. That would be an erroneous understanding. They are tools. They are, again, certain platforms that you can utilize to help you get your realizations into yourself because they're utilizing a particular template. Yes, there are indeed the idea of orienting your space, orienting your bed, orienting yourself to be completely in alignment with specific energies that occur during particular alignments where you can completely refresh yourself altogether. In fact, it is through your own feng shui and it is through your own Vastu Shastra that can teach you such things. There is also the idea in that sense of being able to understand the center of all things and being able to apply the center to all things that will enrich you whether you're sleeping or not, which you do not know about. Because again, you need to explore further. You're not finished, but you think you are. There's a lot more that goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, where regardless of what you're doing and where you go, and who you're with and what you're doing all together can bring about this harmony of the center all the time. It's when you learn to tune into the center of your being, to knowing that that is the source, and you're encompassing the source with you all the time, then it does not even matter what's aligned in your house or not. That will refresh you all the time. That will bring you into blissful divine states all the time. Doesn't require alignment. Therefore, that idea of your alignment would be obsolete. But we don't see it that way, because that's a tool. Because you discover something that may be a little bit more advanced, you're not burning down the past of everything that brought you to the top of the mountain. I used these ladders and I got all the way up the top and I climbed, and here I am sitting at the summit. Now I'm here at the summit. Now I can kick all the ladders down. Then how are you going to get down from the mountain? Because you will see that indeed there is a treacherous climb below. And are you leaving that open for others to come and climb the mountain and join you? It is not about the nature of enlightenment by you taking one particular tool and thinking that this is it, this is the Holy Grail, and all the other things are terrible, burn them down. That becomes arrogance and ignorance, not revelation. And we want you to remind yourself of that. All tools are simply tools. And it is the one who utilizes those tools that determine their alignment towards all things that they now have through realization. Do not blame a tool for the idea in that sense pertaining to your own negligence of your own knowledge. It's you, not the tool, right? We thank you very much, all of you, for your questions. I am Adronis Sub-Sirius, and we will now return to the conduit. Goodbye for now. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this broadcast today. Killian, thank you again for moderating. We had some really great questions today. Hope you have all enjoyed it. So again, I will be back next Sunday for another episode of Transmissions from Adronis. And also the New Earth TV Lives are going to be moving to a new date. They're going to be starting every Tuesday. Okay? So this Tuesday will be the brand new Earth TV Live. And there's also going to be more segments with Adronis through the New Earth TV Lives as well too. So look forward to the New Earth TV Live here this Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you guys for joining me today, and I'll speak to you again next time, or rather in another perspective of the now. Om Shanti. Shanti Shanti. Namaskar. And may it be well with you. Bye for now.